Hello and welcome to Plus Sports Special on Plus TV Africa. It's Saturday and of course we bring you the latest sports news from around the world because it's important for you to have something to step down on during the weekend. Obviously there are Premier League, La Liga, Serie A and League One football today, as well as Bundesliga, and I'm sure you're all looking forward to it. But aside from football, there's so much going on in the world of sports right now, including talks about bringing the World Cup to a biennial regular occurrence. We might have World Cup every 2 years very soon. There are those who are against it and those who are fully in support of it. To that note, we go to the CAF. The Confederation of African Football held in an extraordinary Congress in Cairo on Friday, November 26th, where African countries unanimously voted for a resolution backing the plan to change the hosting of the World Cup to every 2 years. Support for holding the World Cup every 2 years in place of the current 4-year cycle has already been expressed by CAF President Patrice Motsepe, and the usually compliant Congress is expected to endorse FIFA President Gianni Infantino's plan. This comes despite the threat to the continent's flagship event, the African Cup of Nations. It is held every 2 years because it is used to bring in 80% of CAF's revenue before the Confederation starting receiving financial grants from FIFA. Motsepe has become a close ally of Infantino, who has pushed hard in recent months for acceptance of his plans to increase the frequency of the World Cup, but has met with considerable opposition from Europe and South America. CAF is also expected to ask for the formal approval of plans for a Super League, another Infantino idea that will see a permanent roster of some 20 teams with 1 or 2 changes every season. Now, meanwhile, the CAF president has spoken about the need to follow the science in regards to AFCON, the Africa Cup of Nations, as it's coming up. With the new strains rising in South America, there's a possibility it might affect the competition, but we'll see how that goes. Now, FIFA President Gianni Infantino accused those opposed to altering the frequency of the World Cup to every 2 years of being scared of change and wanting to keep their elevated status in the game, as Africa on Friday, November 26th, backed the plans in a veiled dig at confederations in Europe and South America who have come out against the plan to change the current 4-year cycle. Infantino said they did not want things to change because they were at the top of the sport. He was speaking at the Confederation of African Football Congress in Cairo, where African countries on Friday unanimously voted for a resolution backing his plan to change the hosting of the World Cup to every 2 years. Infantino insisted increasing the frequency of the hosting of FIFA's flagship event would offer more opportunities to countries outside of the top tier of the world game. Infantino said he would continue to consult opinions on his proposal, but gave no timeline for its possible implementation. UEFA has said a new schedule would have an adverse impact on the balance between local, domestic, and continental and international competitions. CONMEBOL, the South American body, said the project turns its back on almost 100 years of world football tradition. Now, this morning, I do have with me Seun Ajidaba. Seun?
Good morning, Mika. It's a pleasure joining you on the show, Plus Sport on PlusTvAfrica.
Thank you for your presence. Obviously, I admire your knowledge about all kinds of sports. You're the go-to man for cricket, but right now we need to talk about this World Cup. It's looking like Infantino is steadily marching towards 100% support. Right now, Africa has now fully thrown its back behind the proposal. Is it a done deal already?
It can't be a done deal because if there is anything I know about life, before decisions are taken, it has to be unanimous. Africa alone does not constitute FIFA. Europe are against the biannual World Cup, same as the South America. I think we need to ask ourselves some pertinent questions. Much as we love to see the World Cup, this is looking like an overkill on the part of the players. The quest to have the World Cup every 2 years, for me, is selfish. The players have a lot to contend with. Some will play the Champions League, some will play the Europa League, some will play the Conference League. They will even play cup games. And you still want them to come every 2 years to come and play the World Cup. No, it's not adding up at all.
You know what? It boggles my mind that something like this would even pass amongst the African nations, given that it has a major threat to the Africa Cup of Nations, which hosts every 2 years.
You know the sad part? It's as if in Africa, we just move sheepishly. Like we are controlled by a button. And I look at these two people, Patrice Motsepe for CAF and Gianni Infantino for FIFA. Go and check. These guys are just administrators. They are not footballers. So they don't understand what these players go through on a daily basis. Training, match, and you still want them to come and play football. I think they cannot take this decision devoid of the players. The players have a big say in this decision. If they say they don't want to, you can't force them.
You know,
so the players' union must come together and say, we don't want a biannual World Cup.
Seun, I want to stick with this story right now. I want to stick with this story. On Thursday, a report came out that stated that the local leagues in Europe, the Bundesliga, the La Liga, Premier League, all of these leagues will lose as much as 8 billion euros if the World Cup were to happen, because they would be forced to shorten the league, shorten the duration of the league. And one of the ways they might have to do that is to have reduce the number of teams in their respective leagues in order to meet up with the necessary time for the players to be available for the World Cup. As well as that, money obviously is the main focus of this whole thing. Money, money, money. But the argument when proposals like these come up is that it will provide so much more money for certain people. Is it likely to actually provide the kind of financial injection into poorer nations, poorer continents like Africa, like Infantino has said?
I don't buy the idea of the money thing. Let's face this fact. They are talking about the biannual World Cup, and Africa is, trying to drum support. Let me tell you something, Mika. These people in FIFA, do you know they've caused a big problem for the world? And one of the problems is, it is sacrosanct, it is fixed, that every World Cup will be held in June, July. And now, they have changed the goalposts by virtue of awarding the World Cup to Qatar.
Yes.
Which meant that in 2022, the World Cup can never take place in June, July. It's going to take place in December. And that December means it has halted the European calendar. Because most of them would have to be on break at that period just to accommodate the World Cup. Now you are still talking about playing matches. Do you know the issue of the COVID-19 and the stress that the world has gone through in the last 2 years has even made leagues to say, let's have 5 players as substitutes rather than 3. It's only in England that they are a bit headstrong. I don't know the reason for doing that. But every country has adopted 5. It's because of the problems that they are going through.
Based on that point, the fact that the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic caused all of these clubs so much financial heartache, and even nations and their sporting programs had to cut back because of the problems that have come with it. This whole thing seems very hypocritical to me. The Super League in Europe was immediately dismissed, and they refused to support it. They refused to even negotiate about it, even though the monetary impact was the same argument that the clubs that signed up for it were putting forward. Now they want to create basically the same thing in effect.
I quite agree with you that COVID has made some of these clubs go bankrupt. Some have even gone into administration. Reason I'm saying this is before the reopening of the stadium for fans to come and watch games, before they were played more like behind closed doors. So all those merchandising, ticket sales, and all those things that clubs usually thrive on wasn't there anymore. Case in point, you look at the new camp in Spain. It accommodates 90,000 people. Look at Old Trafford in England. About 80,000 will get into match venue. And when those things were not applicable anymore, it means that tickets were not sold, souvenirs were not sold. So some of these things, even some of the stars, their services were not needed because, hey, what do you need a mascot for, the manager and all those things? So
True.
We know that they have issues with finance. But again, you have to look at the players. They are the real protagonists. Let me deviate a little bit. I remember when Roger Federer, I beg your pardon, was the chairman of the ATP. There was a time they wanted them to be playing some matches because those organizers of those competitions want to see those superstars. Yes, they were going to pay them, all those St. Petersburg Open, all those Cincinnati Open and all that. And at some point in time, Rafa Nadal had to go and tell Roger Federer that, please tell these people organizing this competition that we can't play all this competition. Even when we know that the money is juicy, attractive, and mind-blowing sometimes, we cannot play all these competitions because it takes a toll on us. We will select the competitions we want to be part of, but we know we are duty-bound to take part in 4 competitions, which is the Australian Open, the French Open, the Wimbledon, and the US Open. Yeah. Those are traditional competitions we cannot miss. But every other one, they are ranking competitions. So we can choose to be part of it or choose not to be part of it. So they had to lend their voice. And their voice, was louder. So this issue of Gianni Infantino is sentimental. And it's a shame on those people in Africa that they cannot take decisions. They don't have a mind of their own. They are just moving in a dogmatic manner and moving sheepishly. Wherever you want me to go, now we'll go.
I just worry about the financial impact it will have on also the fans, because when these clubs start to have to jack up their prices in order to make up for the lost revenue, they will end up passing it on to the fans. That said, now Manchester United has had a developing story in recent days. Talks about hiring Ralph Ragnick as their new interim manager has picked up steam, and Jurgen Klopp has said that the news of Ralph Ragnick becoming the interim manager of Manchester United is obviously not good news for other teams. The 63-year-old is reportedly close to signing a 6-month contract with United, with an added 2-year consultancy role after that. The Liverpool manager, who knows Rangnick from his early days as a manager of Mainz, called him outstanding and very well regarded in Germany. Klopp also claimed that United will now be organised, and that is unfortunate for Liverpool. Meanwhile, Thomas Tuchel has revealed that Ralph Ragnick had a huge influence on his decision to start coaching. The Chelsea boss spoke highly of his fellow countryman, who looks set to take temporary charge of Manchester United following the dismissal of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. With the appointment not yet in place, it is unlikely the two Germans will come face-to-face on Sunday at Stamford Bridge. Now, Seun, we've talked in the past about the fact that it seems that the best managers are all flocking to the Premier League. Antonio Conte in Tottenham, Tuchel in Chelsea, Klopp in Liverpool. Manchester City, of course, have Pep Guardiola. And now it seems Manchester United are about to gain one of the preeminent football managers of our time. What do you think? It seems to me like the Premier League is about to be crowded by Germans.
Definitely, I think this is one of the best decisions Manchester United took in the last 10 years since the exit of Sir Alex Ferguson by employing the services of the man who introduced what we call the Gege pressing.
Yes.
And he has a lot of followers, the likes of Thomas Tuchel, the likes of Jurgen Klopp, Ralph Hasenhuttl, in Southampton, Julian Nagelsmann, Hansi Flick, all of them actually learned one or two things from this man. He's going to be there on a temporary basis, but more importantly, going forward is what I'm excited about. Looking like he's going to be the sporting director or director of football, whatever role you want to call him. Because he once said some weeks ago that United were spending, but they were not spending wisely. And I agree with him completely. So it's high time United moved away from all this DNA, RNA, whatever NA that they're talking about, and employ somebody who understands the running of the business. For me, I had mixed feeling because I was thinking aloud yesterday that the appointment of Ragnick, should he have come after the game against Chelsea? Was he going to serve as a distractor? Knowing that Carrick could say to himself, this looks more like my last game. Am I going to still be at Manchester United as an assistant, or they will tell me to go? You know, those things will be running through his head. After that important victory at La Ceramica against Villarreal in the UEFA Champions League. But these guys are professionals, and they know they are far from the chasing pack. They cannot afford to lose the game against
Well,
Chelsea,
I'm sure Carrick is probably...
good night.
Well, I'm sure given Carrick's relationship with the board, Alex Ferguson, I'm sure he's probably been taken along with in the decision making. So at least he understands where he stands. Now, of course, this man has been referred to as Professor, famously because in the 1990s, he came out during a press conference and actually had a white board, a black and white board, ready to teach a class in front of the journalists. And he has been referred to as the godfather of modern German coaching. He established and innovated the Gegenpressing and the flat back four. Klopp seems to be worried, at least for the next 6 months, that his professor, his godfather, his mentor, might teach Liverpool a few lessons.
Well, you can argue for or against. His coming might actually change the fortunes of United, and it could go the other way. But the honest truth is, United has a good squad that can compete favorably and win titles. Unfortunately, the club had a brainless, idealess, clueless, tactically bereft manager in Ole that I've always complained about. That Ole is a no way. The only way is for Ole to get away.
I sense you don't care much for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a manager.
No. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't going to win a spoon for Manchester United. For me, Mikel, if I have my way, 2 people should be locked up in jail. The executive chairman at Manchester United, in Ed Woodward, that I love to call Ed Coward, because of the businesses he did. The other person I feel should be locked up in jail should be Richard Arnold, the managing director at Manchester United. You ask me why. These guys have done some businesses that are very shady and cause for questioning. Last season, Villarreal won their first title in 94 years, and that was the Europa League final against Manchester United, a team that just had one shot on target, Gerard Moreno. And in the wisdom of Ed Woodward and Richard Arnold, in July of last year, or this year, I beg your pardon, they decided to give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a 3-year contract. On what ground? Now United has parted away with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer by a mutual agreement, and United is going to pay Ole Gunnar Solskjaer £7.5 million. As if that was not enough, they aspire to inspire like a Maguire who should go and retire. The captain of Manchester United, another brainless individual. This guy was available for £60 million when Jose Mourinho was at the helm of affairs. They decided to buy him for £80 million. Another player that calls for questioning was Marouane Fellaini. He was available for £24 million. Manchester United eventually got him for £30 million.
I remember that.
A lot. I can continue to count them.
Okay.
So on that premise, I feel that these two guys, even if you are not going to lock them in jail, bring them to Nigeria and take them to all the slums that are dirty, make sure that they clean those places and clean it very well, because they have cost United a whole lot of mess.
All right.
They have put us in financial turmoil.
All right. At least your fortunes are not as bad as Barcelona. Meanwhile, Thomas Tuchel has revealed that Ben Chilwell has sustained a partial injury to his ACL and could be out for more than 6 weeks. The England international had been enjoying a good run of form for club and country, but had to be replaced in the Blues' 4-0 win over Juventus in the UEFA Champions League on Tuesday. The Chelsea boss said the 24-year-old is remaining positive, but didn't rule out the possibility of undergoing surgery. Elsewhere, Tuchel also spoke of the excitement of working with some of Chelsea's academy stars and how they have been so impressive lately. Now, Shell, it's unfortunate to lose such a player at a time when he's picked up tremendous form and was seemingly even keeping out Marco Alonso, who started the season seemingly more brightly than he did. What does this mean? The possibility that he might actually be out for the rest of the season, it still exists. What does this mean for Thomas Tuchel?
Sad that Ben Chilwell, the England left back, he has been an anterior cruciate ligament. You know, the sad thing about things like this is when you are back, you might not be back to your best. True. And that might spell a lot of doom going forward. He got game time under Frank Lampard, but when Thomas Tuchel took over, he rejigged the whole thing and brought back the old guard. The likes of Rudiger, who were not getting game time under Lampard, the likes of Cesar Ciculeta, and of course Alonso. But he got an opportunity and he was doing well, only for this injury to crop up. The good thing about the squad of Chelsea is that Thomas Tuchel has built them in such a way that they are very, very fearful to play against. And anybody called upon would definitely deliver. Look at Nathan Chalobah, that young lad. He's strutting his stuff. They have plethora of options to pick from. There's Christensen, there's Rudiger, there's Thiago Silva, there's Chalobah. You know, so options are many. The injury to Ben Chilwell is a plus for a player like Marcos Alonso. But you know, the sad part again, like I reiterate, is that him coming back might not come back to that best. And so the man will have taken his position. And I don't think Alonso wants to relinquish that position.
Now, of course, Chelsea will face Manchester United on Sunday. But let's take a look at the Premier League fixtures for today. Now, as you see there, Arsenal will face Newcastle. Newcastle are still struggling for regular points. Arsenal just lost a few points against Liverpool. We'll be looking to make up for those points. Liverpool face Southampton. Norwich City face Wolves. Crystal Palace against Aston Villa, and Brighton versus Leeds. Where do you stand on the Arsenal-Newcastle game, Sean?
Newcastle have not won a game in the Premier League. They have a new coach now. He tested negative for COVID-19. Former Bournemouth manager Eddie Howe. And they hope to remain in the Premier League because it will be an aberration and a sacrilege and a bad record to see that the richest club in the world are playing in the lower division.
Yes.
So the first thing Eddie Howe needs to do is to keep them in the Premier League, ending the January transfer window, where they can include some other players that will keep them in the league. They've got some good players, Joelinton, Willock, Maximilian, Ayose Perez, you know, so Almiron. So there are some good players that can actually get them some positive results. But facing an Arsenal side who just lost their first game in 10 matches, I don't know how they will recover quickly from that loss against Liverpool. But for Newcastle, if there's any time for them to start anything, it is now.
How many goals do you predict in this game?
How many goals did I predict? I always feel in flying colors when it's time for me to predict. But something just tells me that Newcastle might just get a result, be it a draw.
Well, another match to look towards is also the Crystal Palace versus Aston Villa game. Crystal Palace are picking up steam, and Aston Villa seem to be still finding their way under their new manager. It will be the first time Vieira will go up against Steven Gerrard. It will be an interesting watch. Now
Aston Villa started well.
Yeah.
Under Steven Gerrard.
Yes.
After me to go. But for Patrick Vieira, I must say that he has done a fantastic job.
Absolutely.
He started poorly, but he has really found his rhythm.
Well, for Sunday, obviously, Brentford will face Everton. Manchester City will take on West Ham. Leicester City will go up against Watford. And again, Chelsea will face Manchester United at Stamford Bridge. Now, let's go to the Beijing Olympics. A handful of Tibetan activists on Friday, November 26, staged a mock funeral for the International Olympic Committee in front of its headquarters to protest against next year's Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics in China. The protesters held a mock black coffin bearing the Olympic rings and the dates 1894, the year the IOC was founded, and 2021. And unfurled Tibetan flags and a banner that read "Boycott Beijing 2022." The IOC has long been criticized by human rights groups for awarding the Games to Beijing, the first city to host both the Summer and Winter Games, due to China's treatment of Tibet, Uyghur Muslims, and Hong Kong. On Tibet, which it has ruled since 1951 after its People's Liberation Army marched in and took control in what it calls a peaceful liberation. China says its rule has brought much needed development to a poor and backward region. At Friday's protest, pieces of paper with words such as athletes, security, friendship, and Peng Shuai's security, in reference to the Chinese tennis player whose whereabouts became a matter of international concern for nearly 3 weeks, were placed inside the coffin. Now, this just seems to be picking up steam. Protests left and right. Has the IOC made a tremendous error in choosing China to host the Winter Olympics, given their regular stance on trying to avoid political statements?
It's unfortunate the issue that happened to the double Olympic champion, Grand Slam champion, I meant to say, for doubles, Peng Shuai. Going by what happened between herself and a former prime minister in Zaoli, where she said they had an affair, and at some point in time, the man invited him over to the house, and the wife beat her up. There is still the issue of her disappearance. And Thomas Bach and Ben Simon, the ATP president, is saying they must look for the whereabouts of Peng Shuai. It's unfortunate because things like this will make people want to refrain from attending competitions in China. And so it's rather unfortunate that it's happening. But I hope they'll find a lasting solution and clear their names.
Now, of course, hello, Seun?
I can hear you.
Yes. Now, the Tibetans are arguing for more than just the Peng Shuai situation. They're also trying to call attention to the Tibetan situation, the Hong Kong crackdown, as well as the Uyghur Muslims. The problem here, it seems, is that China is an actor that seems to go against international norms. How is it that even with the notion of trying to maintain international participation, keep lines of dialogue going, and keep politics out of sports, how is it that the IOC can continue to turn a blind eye to such bad state actors like China, whose actions affect everyone?
Well, it's unfortunate because it's just like what Lewis Hamilton said when they wanted to race in Qatar, and he was telling them that they need to find a solution about human rights activity if you want us to be racing in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia. So this is the opportunity to also learn their Hong Kong and China. I think this issue needs to be resolved. They need to come out clean, because athletes will start refraining from going to such countries with issues like this. Don't forget that it didn't only happen to Penchua. It also happened to one of their billionaires who was missing for like 6 months because he had to learn his thoughts. So are you saying people don't have the right to air their opinion when things are not right, looking like you want to gag them? Because the president is a close ally of Zhao Li, and it seems as if he is not pulling his weight on this matter. And that's the sad part in all of these things. And that's why the women folk from the likes of Serena Williams and all of them are saying, please, we cannot allow this to slide. Where is the whereabouts of pension?
Well, in another stain on the IOC image, former Rio 2016 and Brazilian Olympic Committee President Carlos Arthur Nuzman has been sentenced to 30 years and 11 months in jail for buying votes for Rio de Janeiro to host the 2016 Olympics. The ruling was announced by Jorge Marcelo Bretas from the 7th Criminal Court in Rio de Janeiro on Thursday. The 79-year-old executive, who was the head of the Brazilian Olympic Committee for more than 2 decades, was found guilty of money laundering, tax evasion, corruption, and criminal organization. Nuzman's lawyers appealed the sentence, and he will stay free until the appeal is heard. Nuzman, a former honorary IOC member, was first arrested in October 2017, along with his right-hand man, former Rio 2016 Director of Operations, Leonardo Griner, accused of arranging more than $2 million in bribes to get the IOC to pick Rio de Janeiro as host of the 2016 Olympics. Rio was awarded the Games in 2009, beating out Chicago, Tokyo, and Madrid. Griner, a former Rio de Janeiro governor Sergio Cabral, and businessman Arthur Cesar de Mendes Sousas Filho were also convicted for collaborating to bribe IOC officials. Griner was sentenced to 13 years and 10 months in jail for corruption and criminal organization. Now, we've just finished talking about one stain on the the IOC image, and here comes another one. Of course, it's a more private matter in Brazil, but at the same time, it does beg the question, if the IOC was clean, was free of corruption, would it even be possible for someone to try to create situations of bribing officials?
Mikhail, 79-year-old person, served for over 2 decades. I decided to want to end your career in jail by all these shenanigans. I've always said it that some of these bodies, they are larger than life, and they are very, very corrupt. No disrespect to them. I tell you what, the issue of FIFA, I'll still come to IOC, is another issue we need to look out for, where they award some countries some hosting rights, and you will be befuddled that how did this happen? In 2018, when they gave it to Russia, remember it was looking like England and Russia are neck on neck. But England got knocked out in the first round because they did a BBC report of some financial misappropriation, and they said England did not qualify from the first round, and I was looking at it. And the one they gave to Qatar, I have never seen Barack Obama weep like that. Barack Obama wept. Barack Obama wept because he felt there was no way Qatar should have beaten them. And look at what is happening now. The World Cup will not take place in the traditional period, but has been moved to December. I also remember when Russia was alleged of state-sponsored doping, and Sir Philip Craven the
during
president
the
of the
Olympics.
International Paralympics Committee,
Yeah.
completely banned Russia from Paralympics. The IOC under Jack Rogue, I think he's a rogue himself, because if you are Jack Rogue, you'll be operating like a rogue. They allowed Russia to be part of the Olympics, and they said they should be doing it under a neutral flag. But in all honesty, it's a shameful act that someone who has served for over 2 decades and is 79 years decided to enmesh himself and soil his name in the mud.
Well, you're definitely right.
To just go down the drain because of this act of his.
You're definitely right about that. 79 is not a young age to now be spending time in prison. Most likely the rest of his life. Thank you, Seun, for joining me and all of us at Plus TV Africa this morning. Plus Sports
Thank you, Mikel. But before I sign out, I need an apology for Jurgen Klopp for that derogatory, unguided, and silly comment of his after they beat FC Porto, to say CAF is a little competition. They need to caution him. He has to apologize to us in Africa because he couldn't have called the European competition, Euros, a little competition.
All right, Seun. All right, Seun. I understand, but we really must go. Thank you for joining me this morning, and to everyone at home, thank you for joining us on Plus Sports Special on Plus TV Africa. Always a pleasure having you. My name is Mikhail Tinubu. Remember, life is never boring with some sports. Have a nice day.